Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to AI 2030 show. My name is Xiaochen Zhang, the CEO of FinTech for Good, and also the co-chair of AI 2030. Of course, today we have a very special guest, and he has a very interesting background. And then with his magic, he was able to just put all that into work, and then his work is going to impact many of us, especially in Chicago. And with that, I'd like to just have you to introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, and thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure and honor. So my name is Koushik Subramanian. I've been in Chicago close to 30 years or so. Background is in cybersecurity. Basically started my career and sort of my schooling as a computer engineer. I like to say I got caught as a hacker in high school, and the high school gave me a job right afterwards, which kind of worked out. And that sort of kicked off my cybersecurity career and sort of really just understanding networks and how this entire world, digital world, kind of works together. I spent 10 years in kind of working through fintech security, spent a number of years working through IoT security on a global scale, card level security, fintech security. I mean, it's been kind of all over the globe. And I've been really fortunate in the past 5 years or so to get involved with crypto. So my current role, I am the CISO for Kraken Financial. So we're hoping to become the first, if not the second, digital asset bank in the entire nation. So we'll be able to basically custody digital assets with us, and we'll ensure that we safeguard them and keep them safe. I also act as the security governance lead for Kraken Exchange as well. So that's another large crypto exchange in a sense that, Bitcoin, Ethereum, any sort of digital assets. So all of these experiences, kind of have led me to a place where I'm a curious person at heart. I'm a tinkerer at heart. I like breaking things down and also combining tools together to see if we can make something different. And kind of throughout all of this, throughout my cybersecurity component, my blockchain component, there's also been this level of AI and sort of fashion that I've kind of been building on the side. And what I've been wanting to do is really combine everything together to the stance of, can we use each tool to fix its specific purpose, right? And the way I kind of look about it now, if I kind of back into, kind of maybe where we are even in Chicago or maybe in the state of Illinois, and maybe even within this country, there's a lack of transparency. There is sometimes a lack of accountability. There's a loss of trust. There's acceleration of digital tools. There's an acceleration of AI. There's a sort of nebulous sort of unknown around crypto and blockchain. So like we're at this really sort of almost what I call a tinderbox moment of all of these tools that are really meant for good, right? Blockchain meant for good, AI meant for good, cybersecurity meant for good.
Probably before you dive deep into the application side, that's because all these three, if you call them technology or how you term that, what are the intrinsic connection between all these three? And we know that anyone who is working on cybersecurity, potentially you have to really be exposed significantly to emerging technology, because then any of the emerging technology potentially are introducing new risks. But in the meantime, that is also introducing new solutions as part of the cybersecurity solution package. And with blockchain, AI, and how do you just bring them together under the cybersecurity umbrella, and or now that you serve for digital asset company, and where that cybersecurity now serving the blockchain side, and then in the future that's you're looking at the public policy, and then cybersecurity, digital assets, or blockchain AI can again just reshape a new model, that's which is so important. For how do you put all these three pieces together, and how do they function interactively?
A great question. So I think if I break down the first order of all three of these, right? What do all of these three technologies, why do we use them? Why are we even looking to level them up and upgrade them? It's because of communication. All of these tools, technology in itself, I believe, is meant to just accelerate connection between humans, accelerate the way that we obtain knowledge, accelerate the way that we experience time that we have in this life. Right? So cybersecurity, in a sense, is meant to make sure that the communication that you and I have is secure. Blockchain is ensuring that the communication that you and I is consistent and is in the same protocol. We're using the same words, the same time, right? We understand each other and other people can. And then AI, I think, is actually the scale component. AI helps you communicate at scale like no other, right? So all of these things I view as communication tools. So they all have their own specific purpose that they have to kind of point out in their own direction, right? They can't be pointed at each other. Otherwise, you sort of lose their good. They have to be really kind of like put at the problem set that they need to be at, right? You almost want to put a chess player playing chess. You're going to put a checkers player playing checkers. And then you may want to put, someone that's just playing tic-tac-toe playing tic-tac-toe. That's how you can win all of these games. But if you move around these individuals where each one is playing a different game, right, that's where you're not really getting, you're actually introducing more risk into the system. You're taking this level of communication that you're trying to reduce the amount of complexity between individuals communicating, right? We're
Yeah,
trying to
I
gain
like
trust
to
between individuals.
yeah, I like you framing that in the sense that under the whole umbrella of communication. So I think that is one way to just really looking at it and also help us to simplify because a lot of time that we use internet, we don't need to know how to internet operate. We use mobile and we don't need to know back end how all those work. So here that's when we probably cybersecurity, blockchain, and AI, and then or very technical term, and then it's main doesn't make sense for everyone to just understand everything. But communication is something that everyone understands, right? And then if you see that those are just a technology, and then that's just a breakdown the communication related gaps and then communication we want a message to be authentic, some technology to just have to back that up, and we need to communicate to scale our communication to reach more people in a timely manner with efficiency, and then that's the AI, right? And then you mentioned about the security piece. That's any communication, especially those important ones, and which impact a lot of interest, and that can be financial interest, it can be other interest, and how that can be done in the security. I think this framework is really important. Now go to your current work and also how that's just evolved into your new interest there, and how that's just this community bring the three technology together, and how that is solving your current problem within your role in a company, and also what are you going to do about it to just bring this three tech together to serve the public.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So, um, yeah, I mean, let's maybe frame it as like, like how can, or how am I trying to help the private sector with
Yeah,
this? And then how am I helping the public sector with this?
yeah,
So I think the largest lesson I've learned so far, and it's a continuing lesson, right? Which is in the private sector, the way that we're actually doing vendor due diligence, and this is something I talk about from like what is called cyber risk for AI, right? As all of these AI tools really start to gain prevalence, they start to really make their way out. What that also means is the buyers of these tools are doing less and less due diligence. The buyers of these tools typically will go from oh, I trust my other, I trust my local peers, so I'm just going to use this as well. And what I kind of view is like this vendor component, this vendor due diligence and vendor onboarding for the AI tools actually needs to get completely flipped on its head to the point of, if we take 10 years ago, if you and I were on the banking sector and we had a new vendor coming by, I would never share that vendor with you. My vendors would be secretive and your vendors would also be secretive because the thing that I wanted was I wanted a game. I wanted a head start over you. But in AI world, it's the exact opposite. if I'm working with an AI vendor, I want to know that you're working with an AI vendor as well, because if I'm working with the vendor that doesn't have access to the same industry banking data that you have, they may make very wrong predictions and outcomes, right? I also want to ensure that this vendor that is in this banking side, as long as you're also in the banking industry, you've also done your due diligence on them so that they're a validated provider that's bringing outcomes to our industry versus giving me a leg up. And I think that's the largest thing that the private market has to understand is AI is not a competitive edge against your competitors. AI is a competitive edge against yourself. So that's the way I frame the private sector. And it's something that I think I really want to encourage everyone that's before you're bringing on these AI tools, look at the bias, look at where the data is coming from, look at even how long this tool is going to be used, because another component is, and this is something that a lot of individuals think about if you don't have cybersecurity experience, which is operational resiliency and disaster recovery and business continuity. So let's just go through the example of many organizations right now are spending millions to integrate AI tools. At also the same point, they're saving all of this cash by starting to reduce headcount. Those individuals are not going to come back. So what happens if this vendor that you put all your hopes in, does not pan out? You are now stuck as a business owner because you've lost and you put a bad taste in your employees that you've moved out, and you haven't done enough due diligence to think through your first order, second order, third order risks for bringing on this AI tool. And this is going to happen a lot in the private sector, I fear.
Yep,
Right. So
and
that's something I really want to kind of point out is a sharing of risk.
yep, and I have also seen this. And one thing, in many conversations I had with the corporate on AI adoption is really that research, right? And where that's before you adopt a new system, new solution, that's what kind of questions that's you need to ask. And a lot of time that's where that there are certain really important questions which will impact your long-term competitiveness and are not being asked at all. And then when you just adopt a solution and then finally you already know the result before it is being implemented. So I think your reminder here is really critical. That's when before you adopt an AI solution, try to bring at least the right expertise into the room. And you represent, for example, the cybersecurity piece, right? And the governance piece, the ethics piece, the union piece, and all the pieces put together where that you can just look in. Otherwise, that may not give you the result, may just even create the new risks and which result to disaster. So I think that is very important. And moving that, do you want to dive deep into your current work, or do you want to just dive deep into the future?
Let's go into the future. I think the future is where, we kind of all talk about, right? And the future is really exciting, and I want to make the future exciting, right? And
Okay,
then
so
a big
then
part of that.
here, based on my understanding of what you plan to do, and that's just um, start from the communication problem, and where that's we live in the U.S. and then it's one of the core model of democracy. And in our current world, democracy is more as indirect democracy, and through election, and then you can just give your vote through the system, and with several states, finally that's to whoever you want to vote for. And in between there are basically we are going to enter into a new year election year soon, and then we'll see all the channels out there debate and all that. But firstly, can you help us understand, are there any gaps in the current election process, especially the communication gaps that you have seen?
Yeah, so there's two main ones, right? So one actually devolves around ballot access, and the other one involves just just basically like candidate positioning. So, for example, right, I'm a registered voter here in Chicago, and I remember every single time I've gone to the ballot, I have to go through, sometimes 50 individuals, 40 individuals, and I do my best to do the homework, but it's really, really hard and time consuming as a citizen. And the thing is, I want to be an informed citizen, and I know many other friends, family, other citizens want the same. But the way that the information is being packaged and being put out online by these candidates is terrible. The way that we gain access to these candidates to understand what these candidates want is terrible. There's gates. I have to either donate or I have to know. Like this is what's holding a lot of this back, right? We need to basically enable access of information to these candidates to be able to accelerate the democratic process. Because you can't have candidates hiding in the dark, hoping that, oh, no one will know me, so they'll just vote for me. Or you can't have candidates that are the incumbent that no one wants to run against because no one has done their homework or research because no one wants to. But the thing is, when you do the root cause analysis, no one wants to do that research because it's really hard to. The information is so piecemealed. The information is so hard to consume. And for many individuals that maybe aren't in this sort of political space or maybe don't have the educational experience or even the knowledge to, there's no one to help them. Absolutely no one to help them, right? So they are basically at the hest of, well, I'm just going to vote the same way I've always voted and hope that it works out. I don't think that's acceptable for our children, for the next generation. Like I had such a hard time, and I deem myself as a moderately well-read. So if I already have a hard time trying to understand what these candidates actually care about, if I already have a hard time trying to access these candidates, it's going to be multiple X harder for everybody else as well, is what I have to imagine. So I want to fix that one component of just like letting and understanding candidates. I want to make that process a lot easier. That's a massive, massive communication problem that AI can help solve.
Yeah, and maybe you as next question you can just dive deeper into that, especially say within this is a bigger problem where that's there is the modern world that's people's interest or excitement around politics is diminishing, and where if you have a lot of barrier for people to participate, naturally that here's diminishing of interest, here is a lot more to ask, even to understand, and of course that you will just have a result that is non-participate, right? You do want the democracy is about participation, and how to just really reducing the barrier, and so that people can understand, can get involved, can also really just be part of this without having to do a lot of homework. And that homework can be done by someone else, right? I think that itself, as a thought and or idea is powerful. But how can you do that with AI?
Yeah, so I like the word that you use, participation, right? Because like when we're framing that participation piece, it's well, right now I feel like I'm only participating when I'm watching the news or if I'm like going specifically to a candidate website, right? But even then, it's still me scouring through information bits and whatnot. And what I want to do is flip this to the point of, chatbots are all over the world right now. And the prevalence of chatbots and learned language models are getting better and better and better. And I think this is actually the place where you kind of marry that with this to the point of, you have a politician or you have a potential candidate and almost kind of going back to the, almost like Roman times, right? Like you almost get this where this is their forum. Everyone in the arena can shout at them whatever they want, and they have to respond back. And the only way that's able to happen is through an AI tool that can actually start to source everything and help to answer things back, classify things, and aggregate all this information. Because otherwise, what we're doing is it's almost like Fox News or CNN. We see these debates. I can't learn anything from these individuals when everyone's talking over each other and there's only a handful of questions. I can't learn anything if I'm only able to learn from someone else asking a question. that's not me participating, that's me consuming. For me to participate, I need to be able to ask the candidate myself directly. And that's where I think an AI tool, an AI co-pilot works the best. If every candidate had this sort of co-pilot tool, which allowed local registered voters 24/7 access to this pilot, and maybe then it can escalate to the individual itself, but at least you're not putting extra gates to communication, extra gates to participation. You're not saying you can only participate between 7 and 9 p.m. prime time, and only if you have cable, right? We have to do the exact opposite, which is if you have an access, like the gates that we should be putting, the gates that politicians should be putting. And this is actually something even larger from a cybersecurity perspective. I like, what I view is the most, or at least the closest to me having the best data integrity and security around my voters is ensuring that my citizens are in my district, and only the citizens in my district have an account on my system. I don't need everybody else. And this is the largest issue, I think, when politicians go to third-party service providers like Twitter, TikTok, or even Facebook, is they're opening up their base to everybody. And that what it does is also takes away from the base. Your citizen base wants to communicate with you. You don't have to go out nationally to come back locally. You just need to stay local. And then the tool between you and your other local individuals is your AI co-pilot that helps you scale. It also ensures that you don't have all sorts of potential nefarious malicious actors within your system, because you're only looking to communicate within your district, which is really the way that we, like, from the ground up, right? I don't need to go over the mountain to the president to go all the way down to the other side. I just need to go to the next step up. That's my job as a citizen, is to go to the next step up so that my alderman can go to the next step up, so that that person can go to the next step up. We don't
Yeah.
all have to. Yeah.
Yeah, that I think is really interesting in several. Again, we talked about the lower the bar of participation, right? And where that's even just when you look at the budget side, that's political campaign is costly, right? And a lot of that money just really go to that's a local candidate have to use national network to just communicate locally, and then now with the other way that you are introducing that all that's the communication campaign related budget can be really used for local purpose, local communication, local interaction, where that's you can reducing the participation cost, and also for anyone who want to go into politician, and I think that itself politics, that itself is also is a fundamental change. And of course that's when you talk about this co-pilot as a new concept, and we have not seen co-pilot in the past who just represent a politician in the past, and there are sci-fi books and also more realistic books about the digital self. A lot of people are very excited about digital self, but a lot of them go into the using the digital self to managing wealth, and then the person the trained co-pilot is just doing wealth management, so making more money for individual. And then this is one of the few conversation I had that someone just tried to use the AI to create a co-pilot, which is really for political purpose. And here that's um, you want that co-pilot to really represent you really well, and otherwise when they access to you, you access to partially you, and or not accurately about what you believe, and then that will be a problem. And how can you create this co-pilot which can represent you that good or that well?
Yeah. I think one thing is I've actually stored all of my reports and all of my writings forever, right? So I got my first computer in junior high, and I've stored everything, right? I have everything ready, so I can easily start to train something off of my own stuff, because I actually have the data. I don't have to recreate that data right now and recreate all my styles. I have what my styles looked like in high school, what my style looked like in college, what my style looked like in my professional life, etc. So I have the data to help train it. But then the secondary piece is and this is kind of maybe more in the cybersecurity realm, right? Is you have to put specific gates around keywords. You have to put specific gates around outputs as well. So not only the input of when the user is putting in something, right? You can start to say, well, which direction are they trying to go? Okay, let's maybe turn this down and let's bring them down back towards the middle. But then also at the end of the output is I'm not just trusting every output that this Copilot, produces. There's going to be a filtering exercise as well that's going to get this, because a couple of things. One, this Copilot doesn't need to operate at speed, right? This is a learning Copilot. This is a information Copilot. So it doesn't need to operate at speed, which means I don't need to worry about transaction times and whatnot. I can really worry about ensuring that the information coming in is gated correctly and the information going out is also gated correctly. I can start to put better filters around and keywords as well. The other piece is I'm actually a little bit less worried about individuals testing it, because the only people that would have access to this Copilot would be a registered voter in the district. Cool. And if they're going to test it for me, I'm actually okay with it. I think that's one of the principles in cybersecurity, which is I don't know if a system is good unless it's been tested, but I'm willing to take the risk as long as you're willing to take the risk with me. And I'm willing to show and be very transparent about this process, knowing that this will lead to potentially a better outcome down the road versus hiding things and hoping that one of us doesn't get hurt. So I think it also takes someone that is willing to do this in a public, open forum and say, look, we're going to go down this road at some point. Let's just go down this road sooner and we can figure out some of these pitfalls quicker.
Yeah, and one thing I like your approach for, again, that this is a big experiment, and it's like in a corporate that before you just adopt a large scale solution, you need to POC, have POC pilots, and then you're running a campaign to, for this important position, and do you take it as an experiment and then in the future it will just give you the result, or you really want this co-pilot now that even through this experiment gave you the result that you're looking for? Do you take it as a
No, this is
POC pilot, or do you take it as a part of the important piece of you succeeding your campaign?
I think it's an important piece. Now, to be fair, when I say I'm pen testing government and pen testing governance, I want to make sure that these tools and these methodologies, these protocols get adopted. And I want to show that someone can win using this protocol. Someone can win being transparent. Someone can win with these tools. Now, like, I'm coming from a younger generation, right? I'm 38 years old. This component of, like, I don't know if it's not about winning in a sense, right? It's about making sure that these tools are adopted so that everyone has time to do whatever they want. So like a lot of this is going to be fully open source to the point of I want to make as much sort of, disruption as possible so that potentially maybe it only gets so far, and maybe even at some point, maybe I get taken down because this AI tool doesn't do exactly what I need. That's totally okay. Because what that means is maybe Johnny in Indiana or maybe Susie in Iowa, maybe one of them sees this tool like, that's really cool. We need to fix governance. And then the younger generation can pick up and basically fork this over and then run with it a little bit further. Because also at that point, right, every year that someone does this, they're just going to have that much more data. The models will be that much more mature, or they'll have more models to pick up from. So this is a long-term thing, to the point of I don't want to keep running to win. That's not my goal. I want to run to show that this technology is is actually can be done for good. We just need to be able to show and be able to use it, right? It's the same thing as, like, for example, for the largest argument in crypto was it's not money, right? So part of this, here's the other kind of like thing of like AI and blockchain, right? Well, how do you fix campaign finance? Blockchain. So let's say I'm donating, let's say I'm running again. Now, what I'm doing is this. Let's say you donate $100. You donate $100 USD. I am okay taking the transfer risk, the price risk. So I will switch it over to either a stable coin or Bitcoin. Your email gets a transaction ID that says, here's how you can follow your money, your donation for perpetuity. You can see exactly where your $100 went into my coffers, and then also where I spent your $100 everywhere else outbound forever. And one extra thing can be, well, let's say you care about AI regulation. Let's say you care about healthcare and you only care about education. And let's say those are your three main things. As a smart contract, your donations can only go to those causes. So using these two technologies, you can actually start to rewire and retransform the way that money flows, give transparency back to campaign finance so that individuals that are donating don't realize, like the last thing I want is for you to give $100 and then it's a black box, it's a nebulous. But if we can take the system down and disrupt the system, if all public finance, right, that goes to campaigns, if it stayed in a public system that you can validate for years and years and years, because then we can also start to weed out corruption in charities. So let's say for the example, in one state, you donate $100 into one specific charity and you're like, I'm only about healthcare. And I said, great, I'm all about healthcare as well. You donate $100. I've already transferred it into digital assets. You have a transaction ID in your email. And then let's say maybe 2 years down the road or something like that, or maybe 1 year down the road, I actually take the $100, I give it to a charity, but then that charity actually respends some of that somehow, right? Some portion of the digital asset gets transferred over to some party in China or some party in Russia or some party in India or some party in Bangladesh, something like that, right? Well, now we can also look at it from a public, like, wait, maybe we shouldn't give this, we should look at this charity a little bit more, right? So if you can start to introduce this public money in a public way right away from the very, very beginning, we can actually start to reduce campaign finance fraud completely. And I can run an entire campaign on chain.
Yeah, and when you're explaining this, and one question came to my mind, and just from the voter psychology side, that's you know, when you explain, the purpose of you using this and what problem you try to solve, and do do you then I wonder whether that will impact your voters' passion to vote for you, because are you trying to solve a election problem, or are you trying to solve my problem when you get to the position? And so, am I just a part of the process for you to test the technology and test the, are you, working for the technology, working for trying to solve the election related problem? Or are you going to, helping me as a citizen to solve my problem? So, how do you balance that?
Yeah. So, so I think the number one thing I want to tell people is what I'm trying to level up. I'm not trying to solve anything, right? I'm not here to sell anything. But I think what we can do together is using these tools, we can increase the level of transparency and increase the level of accountability that we deserve in our governance system. And on the transparency side, that's one component. The accountability side is so they're two broken components that have to get fixed for our governance to succeed: transparency and accountability. So that's where it's like I can't only concentrate on one side. I need to concentrate on both to really help. But like it's like one side is cybersecurity and AI, and one side is blockchain, right? The accountability piece is this blockchain piece because the other part is, let's say I were to gain all your trust, right? But then I just started to spend campaign money like every other politician. Well, then I just lost your trust. I'm just like everybody else. So the only way that I think that this could work potentially is you almost have to take the pendulum from this side where all the politicians are and swing it all the way to the other side where you say, I'm going to do everything public. I'm going to raise money public. I'm going to spend publicly. I'm going to make sure all of my technology is open source and available to the public and be as open as possible. And what that can do is it'll start a trend. That is my absolute hope. If it wins, fantastic. That means we all level up. But if it can at least start this trend of thinking like, oh, maybe we can actually win and actually start to level up our, our overall campaigns and our politics, and have them be more transparent, have them be more accountable, have them be more even just like consumed by the general public instead of only for a small group of individuals, then we all win. Right. And then we just have to continue to kind of hit the low-hanging fruit instead of every 4 years we're like, oh, we're going to solve this large fruit. No, we just have to, like, the way that we deal with cybersecurity and risk is you constantly take apart the low-hanging fruit. And when you do that, you get to something beautiful. But the way that our politics is working right now is the exact opposite. We're all trying to smash the watermelon in the middle. No one's going after the low-hanging fruit. No one's trying to make this country or this place beautiful. They're just trying to solve the best, biggest problem in hopes of the next thing and the next thing. And I don't think that's sustainable by any means.
Yeah, and I think we can definitely continue this conversation for hours. And my last
Yeah.
question, back to the AI part. That so this show is AI 2030, and you're working on something very future oriented, and you're trying to create a movement, a trend. So with now 2023, and looking ahead by 2020 2030, and what do you want to see that this no matter from the private sector or public sector, that how do you think that AI will help to shape the future, and what that future should look like for you?
Yeah. How will AI actually, I think the only way that AI can, let me maybe take a sidestep. I think the way that AI can make the biggest force for good in this world is by putting AI tools in everyone's hands. If we have AI tools in only a handful of hands, in only a small portion of hands like we have now, I think we're going to increase our bias and we're not going to get the good that we need out of it. I think the individuals that need AI the most, farmers, right? People in poverty, people that are underrepresented, they need this tool so we can start to level the playing field overall, because all they need and all everyone needs is access to the internet and a phone. And we have billions of them across the globe. So my hope for AI is not to race to accelerate the tool itself, not to race to accelerate the models and the data. It's to race to accelerate the access of it in everyone's hands, because then we can know what problem to solve versus we're only going to, instead of having everyone solve my problem because I'm the loudest voice in the room, if everyone had access to this tool and we all started to actually collaborate, we can solve a higher good versus just solving my problem. So that's my largest ask for AI is we need to solve the access issue first and foremost, not all these other components. If we can solve the access issue, then we can start to look things in as a first principles mechanism.
I learned a lot from this conversation, and especially from how to think about problems, and you do a lot of sequencing, and from the sequencing that you focus on your number one priority. I think a lot of broader folks that I talk to, and then many times you see that people lost focus, and there's so many exciting things out there, and without having this clear methodology in your mind, and then you may focus on things which are less important and less critical, and so. But I think your focus, having the right focus, having the right sequencing, and also focus on access, focusing on the greater good, and then focus on creating a larger movement. I think all that is very exciting, and I'm very happy about this conversation, and I learned tons from you, and wish you good luck in your endeavor. And so I hope that my audience also learned about your dream, and want to be part of that dream. And again, thank you for your time.
I appreciate it so much and thank you. It's a pleasure and honor. And let's continue the conversation. This is going to be something that will be with all of us for the next decade, 20, 30, 40 years. Like we got to get this together.
Thank you.